All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Anand. I have David here. We're going to hang on and give a couple of minutes for everybody to start joining in. So while we wait, please take a couple of minutes if you want to mute your phone or something like that, so that it's because I think I'm allowing audio in here for you as well. So, but there you go. So, and let me just look at making sure everybody's here.
I have to do this too. It says somebody needs to be first in the chat box and type hi. So I
There you
typed
go.
hi.
There you go. So
there we are. Everybody's showing up. Hey, gang.
hello, everybody. It's interesting. I'm using a new webinar software, and I'm not able to see where everybody is.
Same.
It's very strange. I only see one person attending, but obviously everybody's chatting. So awesome. So
Yeah, nothing like OJT, right? We'll learn as we go.
yeah. I went away from Zoom for the webinar just because I wanted to try out this platform for advisors that want to consider. So Webinar Ninja sends out all those and sets up a lot of the automations of the emails that you probably have been getting. So if you want to look at that, it's an interesting thing. So, of course, this is my first time. So hi, everybody. Hi, Michael. Oh, there's many Michaels. Hi, Jonathan. So we're just going to give one more minute for folks to join. And of course, you can send us questions. So I've opened that up as well. And then we'll help answer those for this as well. So let me just make sure to see how many attendees we have. Okay, got it. Awesome. So everybody's trickling in. That's awesome. So I wanted to start off, basically, some of you are already using Pulse 360, so thank you. But I also wanted to let others know who are joining who may not be using Pulse 360 just yet, and what we do, and my background and whatnot. So to start off, many of you may have heard me speak at different places, but I was in the advisor world for 2 decades. I have literally done everything from serve coffee to clients to compliance. I have ran thousands of plans, put together portfolios of hundreds of millions of dollars. So every nook and cranny of this business, I've had deep experience. And the reason I ended up creating Pulse 360 was I was just getting bruised and battered with all the stuff that we do manually. And it's like, okay, there has to be a better way of how do we deliver the high level of service to our clients that they expect now, and not get buried, right? And it comes down to communication from meetings and meeting notes. That's where a lot of this work for us comes up. So what we developed as a software is, oh, hang on. Sorry, Michael was saying we keep getting kicked out. Oh, interesting. So I'm assuming, is everybody else okay? Michael, Martin, are you okay? Just please on a chat if you let us know if you're getting kicked out. So, okay, cool. So what we created was a software to help you with meeting preps and meeting follow-ups with one place where you can put all of this together. Now, the reason for this webinar is I saw David, who's an advisor up in Oregon, and I'm going to have him introduce him in a minute here. He was using this for a particular set of clients that I was like, wow, that's very interesting, and how he has used Pulse 360. So I wanted to take this opportunity, and I know a lot of the advisors that are part of using Pulse 360 have been asking for something like this, where we can share some of the best practices. So David is going to do most of the talking here. I'll monitor the questions and what have you. So David, what he did with the client reviews is if you're managing assets, as you grow, you almost always have certain clients that perhaps, are not, they're super busy. They don't get around to scheduling a review with you, or, their assets is a little bit lower, and, how much time can you afford yourself as a business owner spend on it. But if you have the accounts on your books, I can tell you from a compliance perspective, since I had that background, there's a potential for an issue. Of course, the market has done nothing right now but just go up, right? So we're all drunk on that. I can tell you the other side, when it does shift, all of a sudden, clients are going to start coming back and saying, oh my God, I lost 10%, 20%, or whatever the number may be. I didn't expect. And now you have a different set of mess to kind of handle on your hands, right? I wasn't always under the SEC FINRA, so I know a lot of you are state regulators. So I don't know the state regulation side of, are they as harsh? So, but I think what David has done would be very beneficial for all of you to put together. So I'm going to let David take over. So David, if you want to start your share, I'm going to stop my share. And then please introduce yourself, and then, of course, walk us through your process and what you're doing.
Okay. Well, hi, I'm David, and I sit in the same chair as most of the rest of you probably on this call. And we do run a firm that recently transitioned from being state regulated to SEC regulated. So the SEC is less familiar to us, but we get the state stuff pretty well. And what I'm going to walk you through today is something that Anand asked me to do, which was we created a virtual review process really directly to speak to the challenge of, first of all, like a lot of practices, we didn't necessarily mean to accumulate a smaller block of business, but it just happens natively when you've got other accounts and then you get their kids or their friends, or in our case, we had retirement plans. And then, like if you open a simple IRA for an owner and then you've got, the other employees, and where do they go? Well, so in that, over the years accommodating, we've still created a block of smaller accounts that, if we're honest, right, they're great people. We care about them, but they're not profitable relationships. In fact, they're the opposite. They cost us money if we really do our time value calculation. So what we wanted to do is come up with a way to be really, really efficient and still legal and deliver the best service possible. But we also found a lot of those clients were non-responsive at times, or, you'd call them or you'd send them communications of some kind, and they just didn't get back to you much. Well, that's this escalating compliance issue. So as Anand said, what we did was we created a process to quickly go through and do the fiduciary obligations that we have, which was look at the accounts, make sure that they were in line with what the client told us, and then to communicate proactively to the client, hey, this is what you told us. We're still doing this. Has anything changed? So I'm going to share screen, and what I'm going to do, you're going to get an infinity screen for a second, and I'm going to move some windows over, but it's just the nature of the way cameras work, because otherwise it looks weird if I'm looking over here, right? So let me see if I can figure this out with us, and we will share this screen, and then I'm going to share our process, which started like, and Anand, you made a pretty picture for us, right? So did it lock in now? Can you see the flow chart?
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. So here's what happened. We started diagramming a lot of our business workflows. It was useful for training and also for us to figure out where we could trim in areas. And Pulse really challenged us to do this. We started using Pulse close to 2 years ago now. And so very, very early stages, and I've watched it grow up, and it's been a lot of fun. But when we start with a client, and it's any size, believe it or not, like if you've got a big client that's non-responsive, they're really busy, whatever it is. But in particular for our smaller clients, this negative consent model worked really nicely. But what we usually start with, who's the client we're going to work with, and we identify them for virtual review, and then we use Riskalyze. Okay, you may use something else to risk profile, whatever you use, just kind of substitute that in. I'm just going to use Riskalyze for our example today. But so we use that, and the first thing we do is, hey, do they have a risk number assigned? If it was a client that maybe before we had Riskalyze, we didn't have that benchmarking tool, well, we need to figure out how to get them into the benchmarking system. So if they don't have a risk number, we estimate it, right? So the advisor, no, they don't have one. The advisor will assign one, and then we will send a link to the client. And this is something that Anand's he's been really awesome to work with. He's taken a lot of great feedback from us. Or I should say, he's taken feedback. He can decide if it was great. But he's taken our feedback, and we said it'd be great if we had an integration with Riskalyze where we could just send a link for the risk number. I know that that's right now, it's in alpha phase, but it's going to be coming out shortly. And then so from Pulse, we can initiate a risk questionnaire we'll send out to the client. If they already have a risk questionnaire, then we're good, right? All we're going to do is run some reports and then take a look at whether or not those accounts are within their expected tolerances. If they're good to go, then we're just going to document and move forward. And if they're not, then we're going to make some adjustments, document that again. And then we do a couple things. One, we push it out to the client, and then we save that information into the client file as a redundant feature. And I'm going to show you all of this and how quickly it happens here. And when we're done here, we also, again, the documents go in pushed from Pulse into our CRM. We happen to use Redtail. Again, insert your favorite flavor in there. And then we have workflows that we trigger as well. Specifically, if we're out of balance, we can then trigger within our office, and it goes into our CRM. Hey, we need to make some rebalancing in the accounts, and it's gonna trigger all those workflows. But this is how that flow works. And so this is something that we have a less pretty version of it that I showed on it, and he said, well, let me work something up. And what a shocker. The tech guy was able to make something nice and clean like this. So use it to your benefit. But what I want to do now is walk you through an example. So I'm just going to drag Pulse on screen, and we've got a client here. This is not a real client for obviously confidentiality reasons, but the working client of Dana Abshire. And I want to show you what it would look like to do a virtual review for Dana. Now, if you've not used Pulse before, then some of this is going to seem interesting. If you have, this is just going to be really familiar. You get to create micro templates. It's the notes that you use over and over and over again in order to make a follow up or create an agenda for a meeting. So in this case, we're going to go into the library because these are already created, and I've already tagged these. And just by putting in VIR, you're going to see virtual review tag populate. When I click on that, you're going to see a handful of pre-populated statements here. So this is just language that we built. And I'm going to start down here and show you how a virtual review process works for us. This is kind of our go-to for our most common virtual review. So we would say, click here, and here's the note that's being populated, right? Littlejohn Financial reviewed your investment accounts as of this date, and we noted the following. And we're going to say, here was your risk score. Here's where your investments are. Are you within tolerance or not? And so forth. So today's review, we can just plug in. Now, I should note before I do this, we had to associate this with a time. Okay. And I haven't done that yet. But, well, actually, I did. Normally, when you first bring in a contact, there's no event scheduled. In this case, make sure you associate it with an event. Otherwise, you're going to throw it into your quick notes, and you're going to have to move notes around. But here, today was November 16th, and we're going to say we had an 8 a.m. And we view it as, all right, we're doing it today, right? So here's the event. Back to our note library, and let's bring up what I just showed you now. Now that you know it's associated with an event, hey, this is the notes for our virtual review. And we'll start here, and we'll say today's date was November 16, 2021. And you can see now that parenthesis there is now filled in, okay? And now I'm going to show you, I've brought up a fictional client here, right? Here's Dana in Riskalyze. Dana's a 64 risk, but current portfolios are a 73. They're not pulling in data for real from anywhere, so, we just had to mock this up. But let's go back and look at the client's risk score, which we said was a 64, right? So I'm going to simply say insert client's risk score, 64. And then the risk score of the portfolio was a 73. Now insert the investment goals. this is an interesting one, but I've got a couple other reports here from Riskalyze, and one of them is the investment roadmap. And let me just pull this up for a second. Note here, when we run Riskalyze reports, the reports were not listed here. In my document, it says which reports we run. Okay, so we're going to run a stats overview and we're going to run their investment roadmap. The roadmap shows sort of what the customer selected as their risk tolerance and their goals were. And then the stats overview is a look at their portfolio and what it's invested in and so forth. So we're kind of covering all the bases there. So now we got to get back to, there's lots of, let me just shrink that down. There we go. So here's the investment roadmap. And you'll notice in the introduction down here, there's a list usually of what are the, what are the goals? Now, this is a fictional client. We didn't create it in the same traditional way. So there's not goals listed, but I'm going to just assign some. So let's say in this case, their goal is retirement. Okay. And Dana's age would also typically be listed because in Riskalyze, you assign a birthday. And so all we're going to say is, okay, more than 5 years until retirement. And based on your portfolio, you're 9 points out of whack. We could probably leave it as is, but I want to show you what happens. We're going to say adjusted, or in this case, rebalanced, right? So we're going to recommend a rebalance. I'm going to add this note. And let me just hop over here for a second and see what we now have is one existing note, right? And you guys have seen all this, but we want to do a little bit more than that. We want to say you're a little out of whack. So let's go back to our library again and add a couple more details really quickly. That virtual review batch, and let's see if anything else makes sense. Because your portfolio is misaligned with your risk score, we will be adjusting your investment mix to become whatever. And this is something that we will do. And I want to use this one to show you something as well. It's called Next Steps. And you'll note there's a little check mark here. And I'm going to click on this. And I'm going to say, your portfolio needs to be more conservative because you're a 73 instead of a 64. And insert a date 30 days from now. Well, today's the 11th. So we're going to say by December 16th, 2021. That's a month from today, and add this note. And I'm going to show you what that did in a moment here. Okay. Also, we're going to say one other thing. You know what? Your risk score might be out of whack. It's been a while. I'm going to click right here. And now I'm going to come in and I'm going to make one quick edit to this, because notice this is something Anand's going to fix, by the way. If I go into Riskalyze here and say, you know what, I want to get a new risk number for this person. I'm going to add a questionnaire and give me a shared link. And it's as quickly as saying, let me copy this link. And now I'm going to come back to Riskalyze and say, I need the customer to go ahead and click right here. And I'm going to drop this link in and insert it. And then it says, hey, highlight this text, enter the Riskalyze link, then delete these instructions from Pulse. So it literally tells me or my team what to do, and we're going to save this. And we've now got a document that if I click add to summary and create this document, I'm going to be able to come down here and say, show me a virtual investment review. And it says, well, I don't know why the greeting here is, this is going to be for Dana. Dear Dana, it's that time again, time to grade the homework, right? And what do we have? Here's our annual review. We reviewed your accounts. You are 64 on a 0 to 100 scale, but you're invested at a 73. You want to retire in more than 5 years. Based on this, we're going to do a rebalance for you. We recommend you update your risk score. And the next step is we're going to automatically fix this for you unless we hear from you by December 16th. If that looks good, let us know. If you've got any information that changed, call us. Here's our number and our email to reach us. Thanks from the team. We hit send the email, and then afterwards, we download the PDF and we can drop it right in there. But there's two other things that I can do before I'm going to send the email. I want to send them those reports, right? So I've got these two reports that we created. One of them was the current risk tolerance. So what I'm going to do is just sort of save that one, and it's going to throw it in here, Dana. We'll just save it into our folder real quickly. And this is just local, and I'm going to save both of those. Now I can come in and I can attach local documents, right? And what are the two things I created right here and here? We'll just, oops, that's a control. Oh, I guess we'll do one at a time. So we add that one, and we add the second. And now I've just attached both reports, right? So when I email this, the client's going to get the two reports. This is the summary, and everything's going to go out to them easy peasy, right? And then we just save this. It's going to be reflected in the CRM. We're going to have the email system's going to capture it for archive. Everything's going to be automated. And that whole thing, with me explaining it, took under 10 minutes. Here's the cool part. This task, let's just take a look at it. What happened is it says update models and trade account. Virtual review shows alignment problem. Category, model and rebalance, category normal, assigned to, in this case, Justin on my team. And notice the start date was going to be December 17th, 30 days after we said so in that deal where it said, look, here's what we don't hear from you by December 16th. We're going to do this on December 17th. Justin's task is scheduled. It's due within 30 days. So he's got time to silo this into his workflow. It's going to show up in Redtail, and we know that we're going to get it done. So everything is automated and easy, simple, done. We can do a virtual review that way in about 5 minutes, and that includes generating the reports in the Riskalyze system. So super efficient, and I'm not going to suggest that this is the perfect end-all be-all, but I am going to suggest that by doing this, it's going to give you at least something defensible from a compliance perspective. That they say, how are you maintaining your fiduciary obligation to your client? And my answer is, look, if you go into the CRM, here's all the times that we attempted to contact them. When they're non-responsive, this is what we did to continue to fulfill our obligation to them. So we'll see how in this brave new world compliance continues to evolve, but that is what we are doing. So that's it on it.
Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. Of course, folks, if you have questions, please drop them in the chat. Let me actually make this. I apologize for this new software that we have. Somehow I can make David, the biggest screen, but I couldn't make his screen the biggest without us. So I apologize. Craig, you asked a question I wanted to make sure I answer. So the task that David created, yes, it does get created automatically in Redtail or Wealthbox or Salesforce. Those are the 3 CRMs currently, and we're looking to add more in the next coming year, of course. So, and workflows also same way. If there was a workflow, that also gets actually triggered in the respective CRMs. So I have a question from Randy here. So David, do you do something similar for performance reviews?
So far, no, is the short answer. Performance reviews are an interesting one. My understanding is that from a securities regulation and fiduciary regulation perspective, they're not actually required. It's something that we often do. And maybe somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, you have to provide a statement and show how much money is in there and so forth. But performance reviews are more a matter of industry hygiene. So we all do that because we like to do performance reviews in person whenever possible because context is so important. They may have the wrong benchmark. They may have the wrong time horizon. They may be looking at one data point over another. Plus, in our firm, we really focus more on the risk conversation than the return conversation because, if you make performance the tip of your spear or whatever you want to call it, we always say you live and die by this sort of performance if that's what you are constantly pushing is, look, we have to outperform every time or we have failed you. There are times you're not going to outperform. It's just probable. So instead, we try to make sure that we are performing to our customers' plan and to our customers' expectations and to the risk that's governing how we can invest. Because, they can't say, oh, yeah, well, you have to keep me at a 40 on a scale of 0 to 100 when the S&P is at 80 and then go, why can't we outperform the S&P 500? And I'd say, well, I don't ride a unicorn here. We have to manage risk and reward. So anyway, that's how our firm has approached it. Is we're not trying to push performance reports out through Pulse at this point. I'm not going to rule it out. Anything's possible in the future, but we're not doing that presently.
Yeah. So is there any other questions, folks, that you have? If you do, please put them in the chat, and or there's a question area as well. So, and again, I apologize for the video. You are all going to get a replay of this, as well as the chart that David was sharing with the process outline, so that there's clear guidelines for everybody of what are the next steps when he's doing these type of reviews. So,
yeah. And it has evolved. Let me just share that. I encourage everybody to make it yours in your firm. We did it because it was actually our initial workflow was kind of a train wreck, because so much of it was left to the staff, and they were doing a lot of it, which sounds like it was smart, except that the advisor had to go into Riskalyze anyway, and we could pull the reports faster than they could. And so we ended up saving like 30 minutes of staff time for 5 minutes of advisor time. It was actually the right trade-off. So we've modified it as we go. So make it yours. And I'll also make an offer that anybody on the call, if you want to follow up, I'll try to be as timely as possible. But if you're curious about how we did something, I'm okay sharing it. It's not one of those where this is such a trade secret that how we made Pulse work was an issue. You guys can have it. It's fine with me.
Thank you, David. So I have some more questions here for you, and I'll just read them out to you. So Brian asked, how do you know when to trigger the client review? Do you have an activity in Redtail? So that the first part of your process, basically.
Yeah, we do. So we have client segmentation, and so we have our clients are tagged in different ways, but we have an annual review scheduled. So that's something the staff drives. Is they will start with the annual reviews that are scheduled, and what I do is I get a calendar block that says virtual reviews, and then they list all the names of everybody in that calendar block, and then we now are transitioning that to loading them into our CRM. They're in the CRM, but we're going to do it now where we've connected the workflow to the CRM too. So I'll go into Redtail on my day where I've got tasks, and I just load everybody up. And it's handy because I can click on their name, launch in Redtail, and then I get Riskalyze pops up, and then Pulse is going. Everything's all linked up. So again, 5 or 6 minutes per review. And as far as I'm concerned legally, I mean, it's a fair review, right? The software is doing a lot of the heavy lifting. We are paying for that software, by the way, but it does exactly what we're supposed to do from a monitoring perspective. But it all gets initiated through the CRM. So we've got our annual review cycle, and the last thing that we have in our workflow is schedule the next annual review. So when this all gets done and sent out, the last task is schedule the next review.
So Craig asked on that, if you're able to share your screen again, David, and show Craig how you put a note template together with the task and the workflow. So would you mind showing that rather than me showing that?
Sure, I can do that because it's really pretty easy. So let me share screen again. So I'm not going to try to fight it this time. I'm going to put it on a different monitor. So I don't know if you can figure out how to make it bigger. I'm going to look like I'm looking off screen here, but it'll be a little faster for me to do it this way.
No worries.
So let's in this case, what we're going to do to create. So we're going to create a note, and then I'll show you how it works. So this is if we wanted to create a note. There's lots of different ways to do it. And I'll call this, let's say we're going to do a financial planning review note, or actually, let's see if I got tax in here. I think I do. Yeah, so let's use tax because it's kind of an interesting one for the end of the year. And let's say we recommend, I'm trying to come up with a way to talk about tax loss harvesting. We recommend tax loss harvesting for your non-qualified accounts. And then the other one is we will communicate with, and then I'm going to put in bracket, name of CPA to coordinate any potential tax. We'll call it capital gains and losses that may be offset. And you'll notice what I did here is I just quickly put in brackets and name of CPA, and then it's going to say text up here. I'm going to add this to the library, and I could flag it as summary, by the way.
Actually, do you mind showing while you're here the task and the trigger workflow as well? Since
Yeah, totally. So the first thing that I'm going to do is, like, if we're going to create a task, notice on the side here. So I'll create a task, and what it's going to say is call CPA to confirm any gain loss harvest needs. And I'm going to say start day is, we'll just say 0. Like, as soon as this note's created, it's going to throw this into the CRM. And I'm going to say, we need to get this done in the next week, right? So the due date is not later than this. And then the category is going to be, I'm going to make this follow-up down here. And if I just do that, priority will be normal, and we'll assign this to myself, okay? Now, I'm going to add this to the library. Before I do, I'm also going to add it to a collection, okay? This is the virtual review collection. That's all those tasks that I showed you in the deal. Now, when I click add to library, it's in there. And now it's also trying to default into the event with Dana. But let's say the name of the CPA is Joe CPA guy, right? And when I click add to the note, it's down here and it's in there. And as soon as I click create document, you're going to see it pop up in there again. Only now the next step's going to be, it's going to include that. Where did it silo it, right?
It's probably. Can you go back and see if it's a tax, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be there. We recommend tax harvesting. If you probably search for it.
But so you'll notice, though, the task was that already there. When I click on it, it's going to say, here it is. Start date's 11/16 now, today. Due date by 11/23, 7 days from now. It's a follow-up, and it's assigned to me. If I were to bring up Redtail now, this is going to actually be in my Redtail waiting for me. Right. So in my CRM, it's going to be there with the task for me to do this. And so the call CPA one, I'm going to have to look up who the CPA is, but not a big deal because it's going to be linked to Dana's contact in Redtail. So when I see this, I can just grab Dana, open the contact up, get the CPA's number, and call real quick because that data should all be in there. Right. So really easy workflow. You saw how quickly I created that. What, a minute? 2 minutes. And so it's, and that was, again, explaining it as we go. So you end up with this whole list, but here's the fun, right? Let's go back to that library again. And now what you're going to see is looking up our list. It's in here down at the bottom.
You put it in a collection, and you actually categorized it for tax. That's why it's not. You didn't give it a tag.
Oh. You're right. I'm looking for tags. So if I look up the collection, we can
Under
go into virtual review
here,
here, and you'll see it. So here's the tax loss harvesting one. Now I could fix that, by the way, right? Like if we come in here, let's go to the library and we'll look it up a different way.
You can just search for it, tax
right.
loss
So all I'm
harvesting
going to do now is type CPA in here, and it's going to say, oh, here we go. And I'm going to edit this for a second, right? So we'll come in and edit this. It's going to reopen it. And now I can also tag it, okay? And now if I want to put virtual review in here, it's tagged, and it will actually show up in the collection the same way. So I put CPA in there. I'm going to delete that for a second. It's going to give me all kinds of notes, blah, 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 blah. And as soon as I go looking for that tag, now we're going to be able to find it right down here, right? and it's going to ask for everything the same way. So hopefully that, answered the question for you.
Awesome. And so that was for Craig. And then Randy asked, David, how long did it take for you to build out your templates and workflow for Pulse 360?
Okay. So it took a little while, but here's why. I think I did it wrong. Okay. And this is a best practices thing where the original goal, and when I first started with on this, it was hey, you should be able to just scribble some notes out there and hand them to your staff, and your staff can take all those and turn them into these templates. And what my staff was doing was like writing the notes out, and they were saving everything as a template again and again and again. And so it got huge, right? And they were just writing the notes instead of making templates. And so we kind of graduated away from that, and we started creating these note pages with check boxes on the sides for things that were commonly used, and those check boxes corresponded to notes that got used a lot. And then we discovered that it actually wasn't necessarily faster for the staff to do the notes than for me to do them. So what happens now is the advisor really is utilizing it, and the meeting gets done, and we take about 10 minutes and just quickly plow everything in there. A lot of check boxes to throw categories in. And then when it's all said and done, any custom stuff, let me show you one other thing about this workflow. So you can create a note on the fly that you don't put in the library. So let's just say, mom recently recovered from a hospital visit. We just wanted to know that, right? Single use. It doesn't even need to go anywhere in here, right? That is not associated with either an agenda or anything. If I create this document without selecting this, it's not going to show up anywhere. It's just going to be a note that we have in our history so that we would be able to know that and the team could know it, right? So when it says how often do I switch between Pulse and Redtail during the day, I'm not in Redtail very much. I use just the primary heads up display in Redtail, Craig, to say, here's my daily tasks and, sort of check them off and make my way through it. But yeah, I'm in Pulse a lot more than Redtail now. It's the other way around for the rest of the team. They're in Redtail all the time and they're hardly ever in Pulse, but it's a really good push for our advisors. So there's 4 of us that are advisors now in the firm, and I'm trying to get everybody to push those through. So, finish the meeting, write the notes real quickly, send them to the client. And the client's like, oh my gosh, how could you get this turned around so quickly? You guys are really impressive. And then it's also loading all those tasks into Redtail so that the back office team can, coordinate and make everything go where it's supposed to go. So it's making us a lot faster. But long answer to the question, it took a little while for us to figure out how to leverage it in our practice. Once it started clicking what Pulse is capable of doing, it became something that, one, it got easier. Now when I see it, it's not intimidating. I don't care who you are, trying to create intuitive workflows around note-taking when it's not just a yellow pad takes a little while to connect the dots in your mind to what the software is doing. Once it clicks, it's just like bam, bam, bam. How many workflows have I automated with Pulse? We haven't automated tons of workflows because we have the workflows in Redtail. So we trigger workflows from Pulse to Redtail a lot. And we'll put a task in, and then that task notifies the team. And so that's something we're still learning how to get better at. We're building our workflows. Some of our workflows are pretty simple, but like we have a virtual review workflow in Pulse, or for Pulse in Redtail. So we actually use Redtail to generate the workflow for Pulse, and then at the end, Pulse sends it back to Redtail to finish it.
So, David, I want to go back to a question that Martin had, so we make sure we cover that. So, Martin and Eric as well. So, how many templates do you have? Martin feels he's a Pulse 360 user as well since pretty much day one as well, and he feels like he's always creating new templates, right? Note templates. So, How many do you have today, and your thoughts on that?
Gosh, that's a great question. I guess we can kind of go look. Um,
It's
there's probably,
338, as it
let's
says in the search box.
Yeah, so I have 338. We could probably drop about 100 of those because one of the things that we can do is modify things on the fly, right? So I may be able to grab something if I'm asking about, 401k, I quickly get to here and say discuss upgrading a 401k retirement plan. I might grab this and then come down here and immediately click into it, right? And just not trying to trigger a workflow. Sorry, but click into it, discuss a retirement plan for 2021, and then make sure we do stuff, right? Whatever that may be. I can add it in there and just save it. And what I did was I got a start, quickly finished it up and hit go, and it was done. So I'm building off of something existing. I think that the challenge for most of us is to think a little more like a programmer and a little less like an author. So you want to create snippets that you can reuse again and again. And if you're anything like me, the struggle was I don't want it to sound canned and generic to a client, but to the client, as long as it's got their names and stuff customized and it's coming through with a nice format, it just looks professional and timely, and it looks like you have your game together, right? And so they don't know what everybody else is receiving, and they're not supposed to by definition. So they're not comparing the way you will to what you're doing for everybody. Maybe that's not an issue for you. For me, it kind of was. I felt like I was phoning in creativity or something. I'm over that now. It's about efficiencies and getting the job done and making sure we honor our commitments to our clients. And that's like we gotta follow up, stay compliant, and get stuff done.
So I'll jump in here for one thing, David. Do you mind showing? Because Craig asked about how do you trigger a workflow from here. So the last note that you just added for the discuss upgrading 401k. Can you show Craig how to add the workflow to that if you wanted to?
Yeah, well, it's as simple as grab the little workflow icon here, right? And I know, can I tell him on him that there's a change coming?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to
it'll get even easier than this. Right now, there's these icons, and they're easy enough. You just hover over the note, and they show up, and you can come in and grab your workflow. But there's going to be the old 3 dots sort of vertically, and you just go, oh, click on that. It's the more signal, and these are all drop downs, and it will say, workflow. So you can grab it, and then you can come in here and figure out what workflow do you have. Well, these are all workflows that we have in Redtail. So I could just say, in this case, we're doing a 401k, then what's our compliance checklist? If I save this, it's going to, now there is no Dana in our Redtail, so it won't clog it up if I do this. If I did, all of a sudden I'd be throwing an actual thing in Redtail and going, let's not mess up our practice workflows by throwing a phantom workflow in there. But it's literally that easy. There's just this checklist, assign the date for when it starts, hit go. And it's going to go push it to your CRM. Again, right now it's WealthBlocks, Redtail. Sorry, it's
and
WealthBlocks, Redtail, and Salesforce. They can sell WealthBlocks. But anyway, those are going to be the 3 primaries, and I'm sure there'll be more. Once the secret of Pulse gets out, here's my thing. Anybody that hasn't signed up for this, and I can tell you, one, I was an early adopter. I'll admit to being an investor in it because I really love it. But get in while the price is really affordable, because Anand has added so much in the last year and a half. I'm really blown away from what it started at to where it's at today.
So thank you, David, for that. So Craig, I'll also add to this. So this is one way. This is what I call the ad hoc way of adding a workflow. So once you have a note, you want to just, hey, add it. But the other way, which is the bigger power and more automation of this, right, is you define the template, and then you do the workflow in the template itself. So every time you use that note template, all of those things are going to get automated. And for us, one of the biggest themes is going to be we're bringing automation. Basically, what you can do with Zapier is sort of what we're doing by bullet, by bullet, by bullet. You can automate so much of your practice this way.
Yeah. It would have been the equivalent of, sorry, I clicked the wrong one, but if you created a new note and you wanted to build a template, again, we'll just create business planning, sample stuff, workflow, right? And then you can trigger a workflow the same way, right? So we'll add that in 2 days from now, and then when 3 days after the note's created, or after the event starts, you can say when you want it to happen. But you can do that. You can still create a task with the people associated with it. You can add it to your collection and tag it. You can put any notes in there that need to be in there. You can even attach files the way I showed earlier, where you can come in and add files to it. And then the power is absolutely, if you save that to the library, if this is a protocol that you're going to use where, I have here's a great example. Let's say that you help people with like life insurance. Okay, there's one a lot of us may come across, life insurance, and you could say, we recommend getting life insurance. I've attached a census form for you to complete and get back to us. I've also created a workflow that tells the team to follow up in 5 days to make sure that they get that thing back. And here's the person that needs to reach out, and you can do all of that. Tag it as part of your life insurance workflow, and then put it in a collection for life insurance. And now, anytime that you have somebody that you need to run life insurance quotes for that came out of that meeting, you drop that in there, and it'll push all of it through the system for you with just one click. Right? So it's really cool the way it can trigger tons of stuff if you start to understand how the system is thinking and connecting your CRM and the moving parts. Super powerful. From your notepad, literally pushes everything into the CRM and starts entire workflows for your office. I may be overselling it here, but my sense is that this is probably replaces a staff person if you're running more than 60 million or so. And I don't know the real numbers, but if you got more than 60 million under management and you're looking at, hey, I need another staff person to manage my workflow, or maybe it's by number of customers, but I'll bet you could serve an additional 50 customers per advisor or more with your existing bandwidth if you better utilize just what Pulse can do for you, just in the time that you recover through these automations and workflows.
So thank you. And then I want to go back to Eric's question. He asked, so do you do this for all clients or just the small accounts? This is for the virtual review part.
So the virtual reviews are just for either small customers or for customers that are non-responsive. For non-responsive, it makes it sound like it's a medical event. For customers that just won't commit to come in for a follow-up, right? So if they're pushing, and sometimes they'll just say, "No, I'm good. We'll just do it in a year, or later. Like, I don't care. I don't need to come in." Then we do this for them just to verify that we did it, so that we have a record that's defensible in case we're ever audited. But that's our protocol. Otherwise, we want to see our clients, right? It's a chance to continue to manage expectations, get a feel for where they are, all the reasons that we still want those contacts. And to me, that just makes for a stickier relationship. There's a lot of competition out there. The personal advice, to me, needs to be still somewhat personal. That's why people pay us. Otherwise, they can go to a robo. And I'm not interested in competing with robos. I'm interested in providing value that robos can't provide. And that's human relationships, mistake avoidance, reading between the lines that artificial intelligence cannot do, at least not yet. So all of those things that come from intrinsic value of years of experience and working with people, that's why our customers keep us around. But if they don't come in and talk to us, then, that drifts, and we don't want that.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody. Are there other questions? And we'll keep it open for another couple of minutes, but I want to make sure that we help answer this for everybody. Now, let me make David the bigger one so that I'm not taking over so much of the screen. Hang on. There you go. So one of the things that what David mentioned, and the idea behind Pulse 360, I wanted to kind of just make this is you, as an advisor, you're going into the meetings, and what I saw, right? I've been in thousands of meetings. When you come out of the meeting, the first thing that we all ended up doing is scurrying back and creating these tasks and workflows or whatnot into our CRMs and, trying to do all of that. And we forgot to communicate with the client until after everything. So the idea really here is, look, communicate with the client first and then have the tasks and workflows automatically be creating. So you're eliminating the double work, but also delivering to your clients a faster, better experience. Like, hey, look, here's the summary of what we did. That's my angle for what we're building here, right? Every single thing you recommend, now you can have this automation that's behind it that can power the rest of your practice, so that you're not doing so much quote unquote admin work versus advising work. So hopefully that helps. Yeah, so I guess David, you're kind enough to share your these micro templates or note templates. So that would be awesome. There's several folks that have asked. And of course, please email me if you specifically want these templates. I don't want to just send it to everybody who's participating in here, because not everybody's a Pulse 360 user just yet. So please email us.
There's two comments that I would say to this one. One is, I'm happy to share any of this stuff. I don't think that we're terribly special, so that's fine. But I do to put that compliance disclosure of, use at your own risk. We need to say that we're all advisors and we're all fiduciaries here. So I will say, you may have anything here, and I'm not keeping secrets, but the liability gets to stay yours.
That's right. Yeah. So please email, if you're a Pulse 360 user, email support@pulse360.com, or you have my email, anand@pulse360.com. You can email me, and I'll get together with David and get the virtual reviews, and then we'll send them over to you so that you could use it. So thank you, David, for sharing that, as well as David, thank you for doing this and sharing the process flow as well. By the way, the process flow, all of you will get that in a link in about a couple of hours after this. So
I'll share one last thing that this is the actual, Anand made it pretty, but this was the actual process flow that we built. If this is something that, it's a freebie in the Google ecosystem, something called diagrams.net, but we built everything from client workflows to meeting agenda workflows, annual meeting prep flows, client meeting notes, our tech stack that we were using, so even investment due diligence process for how we're building stuff out, all sort of spun off of this. And it's been really helpful for us to understand how our business works. And then it made Pulse make more sense, because Pulse is all about connecting those nodes. So just, for what it's worth, that might be a neat tool for you guys too.
Yeah. So last moment, any other last questions? Otherwise, we'll end this. Of course, while we wait for any last questions, David, thank you so much for doing this. All of you that participated, thank you so much. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of this. Reach out to us so that we can make sure you're using Pulse 360 as efficiently as possible for your practice, so that you can eliminate a lot of this work and focus more on your clients and that side of the world. So I don't see any other questions coming in. So yep. So yeah, thank you so much again, everybody. And David, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And of course, you'll all get the replay in about a couple hours, I believe.
Yeah.
So.
And I would say, tell a friend. This is not a threatening thing in the business where you're giving up an advantage. The stronger Pulse gets, the better it is for everybody. Because, these younger fintechs, the more resources that build, it ends up coming back to help you. And if you're worried about, keeping a trade secret around your notes, I would say, that's not the trade secret to worry about. Most people don't take adequate notes anyway. So phone a friend, let them know. It's a good idea.
Yeah. And with that, I want to make sure David mentioned something. I want to circle back on that earlier about Riskalyze. So we're going to be launching Riskalyze integration in December, where you'll actually be able to create those risk questionnaire links directly in Pulse, so you don't even have to jump into Riskalyze for it. One thing what we're building is more, not just integrations, but we're interplaying with all the different applications that we're going to connect with. I want to make sure that your life is easier, not just have an integration that's pretty to look at. You should be able to actually do some work with it and have it automated. So look for the Riskalyze announcement coming December as soon as we iron out some of the bugs that we have. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you, David, again.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.